Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Outtro and welcome back to my Golf It tutorial series. In today's video, by popular demand, we're going to be taking a look at the event system. We'll go over what exactly an event is and some of the options you can change. We'll also look at some examples of ways that events can be used in an actual map. As we're getting started here, I just want to quickly mention that there is a lot that you can do with events. Tons of options and settings, all of which are pretty much infinitely variable, so the possibilities of what you can do are pretty much limitless. With that being said, it would be impossible to fit every single thing about events into one video, and to be totally honest, I myself don't even know everything there is to possibly know about the event system. But I will teach you guys what I do know, and we're going to break it down into three main categories. First is object transformations, second is rule changes, and third is world changes. There's also technically a fourth category that's pretty exclusive and specifically used for one thing, so make sure to stick around to the end to find out what that is. But learn the three main categories and you'll have everything you need to know to start experimenting and creating your own events. So let's get started. Alright, so we're back in our tutorial world and it's looking as beautiful as ever, but we're actually going to head over this way. So let's go ahead and start by grabbing an event from the menu. So we're going to hit tab on our keyboard and we're going to go to the gameplay tab and find the event icon, which is this one right here. So we'll click on that and let's place it down just anywhere. And now you notice that the event itself is just like any other object. You can move it around, you can scale, you can rotate, just any way you need to. I'm going to scale this about like this, take up the full lane here. Now to actually change its properties, we're going to right click on it and that will bring up its interface. Here we can name it to whatever we want, which is good for keeping it organized. And if we come up to this button here, we can change the properties for this event specifically. The event activation simply changes how you want to activate the event. Overlap is just when the ball intersects with the event, or we can change this to key press, and we can enter in a key that we want to activate the event with. There are even options for button presses across all different types of gamepads. But for now, we'll just leave this as overlap. You can also change the event shape, which changes the hitbox of the event. As you can see, we have cube, sphere, and capsule. We'll leave this as cube as well. In the other settings here, you can change if you want to activate the event only once, or if you want to be able to keep activating the event every time you interact with it. You can also change if it's unique for each player, or if you want one player to be able to trigger the event for everyone else as well. Visibility just changes whether or not you want to actually see the event's hitbox in the game. For most hidden or sort of behind the scenes types of events, you'll usually keep this off. By default, the events will be active, but you can turn this off if, for instance, you want to daisy chain multiple events together and have another event trigger it instead of a ball overlap or a key press. The auto execute is a relatively new feature as far as I'm aware, and there's a bunch of instances you can choose from when you want to trigger the event, such as the amount of strokes taken, reaching the goal, or a certain amount of time has passed. And at the very bottom here, we can choose to automatically execute the events at the start of the hole. As you can see here, -1 will set it to start at every hole, and -2 for the lobby. Once you're done here, you can simply click anywhere outside of this box to exit this options menu. Now, having gone over the options, I understand it can seem like a lot at first, but for most cases, you won't need to change most, if not any, options from default, so it's not to worry. There's just a few things I want to cover in the transformations category, starting with, you guessed it, object transformations. So let's spawn in an object that we can transform. I'm just going to grab a simple block here, and I'm going to place it directly over the lane so that it blocks off the hole. I'm going to scale this a little bit, make it feel more like a proper wall. Once we got that in place, we need to come back to our event and right click on it. In our enter section, we're going to click on the select object button and simply select our block. Now that will add it to the event list, and here we can click on it to change a few basic properties such as the visibility or its collision. We can also rename it to anything we want, but we'll just leave this all like it is for now. Now coming down to this drop down menu, there's a lot of different things we can do to this block, But for now, we're just going to focus on the things that physically transform the object. For example, of course, transform. So once selected, we'll click the plus to add that. And from here, we can click on the action to change its properties. By the way, if you ever need to reposition the camera when in one of these menus, simply hold down right-click and drag. And you can also use WASD to move around as well. So reposition it so we can see a little better. So what I want to do to this block is move it out of the way so we can get to the goal. And to do this, we're going to move it up along the Z-axis, almost like a secret door or something like that. You'll notice when changing the coordinates here, it seems to have made a copy, but this is just to show where the beginning and end placements are, and it will go back to normal once we hit apply. For the duration, I'm going to say like 2 seconds, that should be good. And hit apply. From here, we can exit out of the event and try it out. As you can see, once we collide with the event, the block will move up and out of the way. Now, the same sort of action, of course, can be applied to scaling and rotation of objects, as well as lanes, foliage, and really anything else that can have its physical properties change. Now, who wants to see a magic trick? We're going to use this same event to make some text appear and then disappear. So to do this, we're going to first need to place down some text, so we'll grab that from the Gameplay tab, and we'll place it down. I'll put it around somewhere like here is probably good. And let's change it to say something like going up. Hit apply. Now, if your event has disappeared, don't worry, it is still there. You can see if we hover over it, we see at the bottom, event 1. But if we hit G on the keyboard, it'll bring up all the gameplay elements, and we can see it's right here as well. So once we have our text placed and looking good, we'll right-click on our event and do select object, and we'll select our text just like we did the block. And for the object properties of the text, we're going to uncheck the visibility so we can't see it. From here, we're going to go to the drop-down menu and select visibility, add that. Now, by default, this is set to true, which is actually what we want, so hit apply and exit out of the event. And now, as you see, once we trigger the event, the text will also appear. Now, let's say we want to get rid of the text once the block is done moving. So to do this, we'll go back into our event, and under the text visibility, we're going to add a delay. Just a quick side note, you can drag actions around to change their order, which can be important if you need actions to happen in a specific sequence. So once we have the delay added, we're going to change that to 2 seconds, which is the same amount of time that our block moves for. And after that, we'll add one more visibility action, and we'll set that to false to make it disappear. So to recap, when the ball enters the event, the text that we have set to not be visible will then change to be visible, and then after a 2-second delay, will then change to be invisible once again. So if we exit out of the event and test it out, we can see it will do exactly that. Now, just for fun, I want to show you guys an example of how something like this can be used on a real map. Over here, I have this really long, complicated path to the hole that's full of obstacles, and obviously this could take a few extra strokes to get through. But if you happen to know the super secret password, you can get a free hole-in-one. Now, don't tell anybody, but my super secret password is 123. So go ahead and type that in, and that'll lower the secret door to let us get a hole-in-one. Now, how did I do that? Well, it's a little more advanced, but it should be fairly straightforward to understand. Basically, I've set up these 3 events, and each one is triggered by a key press, one for each number of the sequence. They're all set to be inactive by default, except for the first one, which in this case is the number 1 key. Once we hit the number 1 key, it'll trigger this first event, which activates the second event. This allows us to then press the number 2 key to trigger the second event, which of course activates the third event, which allows us to then press the number 3 key to trigger that one, which then causes the wall to lower. Each event is also set to only be activated once, so the sequence doesn't get messed up by hitting the same number more than once. So nothing too crazy, but hopefully now you can get an idea of just how versatile events can be. Now that we've covered the basics of events, the next sections will go by a little faster. So I've got this whole setup, and once we come over and hit play, you'll see we have a little flyby type of cutscene that shows off the area we're about to play in. Now this isn't a rules change, but if you want to do something similar, all you need to do is grab a camera from the gameplay tab and place it so it faces the area and animate it across some distance with the transform event that we did earlier. And don't forget to add the change to camera and remove from camera both before and after the transform event, so that way the in-game camera actually changes to the one we set up and then back to the main camera once it's done. And after that, I've simply added the auto execute function at the hole so that it starts as soon as the hole starts. So that's all fine and dandy, but we have a problem. That being that we can still shoot in this sort of cutscene mode. And I don't know, maybe you want this as a feature, but in my case, I'm going to disable the ability to putt until the camera animation is done. And to do this is really simple. All we got to do is go back into our camera event, click on the ball button, and add the enable/disable putter action. And by default, this is unchecked, meaning it's disabled, so we don't need to change anything there. Then we want to add a delay that's the same length as the camera animation, which in this case is about 5 seconds. And then after that, we'll add the enable and disable putter action one more time and set that to true. And if we test it out, we can see during the animation, the ball doesn't have an aiming line. I'm clicking, it won't let me shoot, until of course the animation is done, and we can take our first shot. Another thing I want to cover here is the ability to control the ball using WASD and the spacebar, just like you were playing a third-person adventure game. Again, this is fairly simple, but if we take a look at the event here, you can see that we've selected the ball button again, and under that we've added steering, steering while standing, steering forward, and jumping. I've also thrown on a steering multiplier at the end and changed the value to 3, just so that the ball moves a bit faster when controlling it so it doesn't feel like it's dragging too slowly. And to trigger this event, I've made it a key press again. So to activate it, we simply need to press E, and we'll essentially be able just to free roam the map anywhere we want to go. Just of course, as long as we don't come to a full stop. This can be useful for mini games where you need to dodge obstacles or complete a maze, or just need to be able to roam around without taking any strokes. The last thing I want to cover in this section is the ability to change the amount of strokes you have. Over here, I have some lanes set up that will do just that for us. As you can see, every time we go through the plus one, it'll add 1 to our stroke. Of course, same if we go through the negative one, it'll subtract 1 from our strokes. And we have a reset lane that'll set the strokes back to 0 if we pass through. Now these of course are all events triggered by overlapping them, and since I have not selected the one time only option, you can pass through these multiple times to stack the effect, which in this case is simply adding or subtracting a stroke from your score. And again, to do this is very simple. In fact, it's just a single event action. So if we take a look at the event, we'll find that selecting the ball button again, we simply need to add the add stroke action and enter in the properties. Under the amount, we just add either a 1 or a -1, depending on if we want to add or subtract. And to do the reset, we simply change the type to set and the amount to 0. Changing the strokes is incredibly useful, and I've seen it used tons in community-made maps for rewarding players by subtracting strokes if they happen to find a secret hidden somewhere in the map. In fact, my very first map on the workshop uses subtracting strokes on the last hole, where you get to play skee ball to try to lower your score based on the hole you land in. So of course, changing strokes is perfect for mini-games, secrets, and things like that. World changes are super simple, and there's honestly not hardly an explanation that is needed, but essentially, all of the world settings that are accessible in the level settings menu can also be changed through events. You can change the time of day, you can change the music or the fog. However, there are a couple options here that aren't in the level settings as they pertain to a live game session, and those are timer and display chat message. Now the timer action is similar to the add stroke action we did earlier in the sense that you can add or subtract or even set a specific amount of time for the timer. This can be useful if you have a challenge map of some kind, say like an obstacle course where running out of time is common. You could hide one of these events along the route so players can pick up extra time for their run. Or on the flip side, perhaps choosing the wrong path will remove time, and suddenly the player only has 10 seconds left to reach the goal. The choice is yours with how evil you want to be with this. The display chat message is also very straightforward as its function is in the name. It'll display a chat message. You can type in anything for both the author and the text, and you can also change the colors of each. So you can make it seem like it comes from you, even when people are playing the map without you being there. So if we roll over to this corner where the event is, you can see our fun message that was definitely written by me, and definitely not an event that made it happen. Not much else to say, but I've used this event myself in my Outro's Valley map to let players know how many secret coins they've collected. Oh, by the way, remember that fourth category I mentioned at the start of the video? Well, that just happens to be the... Have you ever wanted to blow something up and golf it? Well, dream no longer, because you can do just that with the use of Event Fire Explosions. So all we gotta do here is press this button and... So how did I make that happen? Well, it's pretty simple, really. So if we take a look at the event here, you can see there's a few things going on, but it's mostly just for the house falling over, the camera change, and a little bit here to trigger the audio, but the main focus here is the fire explosion. All I've done here was unchecked the visibility from its initial state, added a 2-second delay to account for the camera change, and then set its visibility back to true. Simple as that. And of course, the event itself is triggered by a key press. The actual fire event explosion object can be found in the Effects tab. So simply grab that and place it down wherever you want the explosion to happen. Now you can resize it, drag it to wherever you need to be, rotate it, anything you need to do. And if you right click on it, it opens a bunch of parameters that you can change. But that's pretty much it. So that's gonna about do it for today, and I hope you guys found this tutorial helpful. And do keep in mind that I probably haven't even covered 10% of everything that's possible. Events are really just one of those things where experience is gonna be the best teacher. But I'm hoping the things I've shared in this video explain the basics of how they work and will get you more familiar with events so that you can start experimenting with them on your own. So go ahead, open a blank map with the editor and start messing around with all the different options and see what you can do. And of course, if you guys have any questions or want to request a tutorial for a specific event setup, let me know in the comments below and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Also, YouTube has recently been promoting a new feature where creators like myself can respond to comments with a voice note. So leave a comment below, and perhaps I'll try that out with some of your comments. With all that being said, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.